For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Dimakatso Motau. Author and political activist Professor Raymond Sadner is in the studio to talk to us about the 50th anniversary of ANC's former armed wing, uMkhonto Sizwe, which is to be commemorated on December 16th this year. Raymond, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mkhatso.
What was the ANC's aim in setting up MK in 1961?
I think one must understand the establishment of MK within the context of the history of the ANC and the struggle against apartheid. The ANC waged a long, legal, peaceful struggle from its establishment in 1912 as the South African Native National Congress, sent petitions, deputations, in a range of ways of trying to influence the apartheid government and initially the British Empire to accord rights to the peoples of South Africa. This was repeatedly rebuffed and also drowned in blood, most significantly in the Sharpeville massacre, and the banning of the ANC, PAC and other organizations indicated that there was very little space for legal political struggle. The Communist Party had already been banned in 1950. Now, when MK was formed, there had already been outbreaks of violence spontaneously by people, for example, in the sugarcane fields in the 1950s. So Nelson Mandela, in his speech from the dock in the Rivonia trial, made clear that violence was already being embarked on by many people, and it was important to channel this through people giving proper leadership. And also, when one considers this as a decision, one must understand that people were reluctant to take up arms. Some people said that it is not non-violence that has failed, but we who have failed non-violence. So it was only when a range of people were convinced that the intransigence of the apartheid regime made it necessary, and people like Chief Luthuli, and this is controversial, according to my evidence, and Moses Kotane, only accepted the establishment of MK provided it was trained and people were not set up as armed fodder. So it's a very difficult decision.
Okay. You make a point that when armed action was ended in 1990, it was difficult for the ANC to instill a culture of non-violence due to the third force that erupted between 1990 and 1994. Please explain.
See, at the time of unbanning of organizations, not just the ANC, the PAC, SACP, amongst others, the conditions were not equal, in the sense that while organizations like the IFP and the Nationalist Party were able to campaign freely, the ANC and its followers were attacked. Communities were massacred on a number of occasions, as in Boipatong. Now, this was then not a situation when people could readily adopt a principle of nonviolence. They were under attack. Consequently, the ANC initiated the establishment of self-defense units and similar things at that time. So it was very difficult to advance peace and nonviolence when people were under attack. And the establishment of self-defense units was not a very successful phenomenon, because often the arms fell into the hands of gangsters and other types, and the self-defense units became autonomous units of violence. And since then, the ANC has not set about consciously enunciating the principle of non-violence. And in fact, armed struggle has remained much more heroic than the principle of non-violence. So one has consciously to emphasize that the Freedom Charter stressed that peace and friendship is an aim of the struggle.
You argue that how we relate to MK's legacy is not purely historical, but is also relevant to our current political situation. Why do you believe in this?
Well, you can see in the streets yesterday that people were singing freedom songs, many of which I assume are related to MK, songs that have been in controversy, like Kill the Boer, arise from the armed struggle when the word Boer referred to all whites in authority or assisting the security forces. And when these songs are sung in another context, they feed into a way of understanding where force is the way of resolving conflicts. Politics, I was reading in a political science book, is about conflict. Now, maybe that is disputable. Let us accept that. It's about ways of resolving conflict. Now, South African history has taught people that the best way of resolving conflict is through the use of force. Now, we have to unlearn that. And songs which celebrate violence, as being heroic, are not appropriate in a time of peace, when we need to build constructive relations between human beings and not have arguments resolved by the gun.
During service delivery protests, ANC liberation symbols and songs are often used. How do you interpret this?
You see, everyone who admires the history of South Africa likes to sing many of these songs. And the meaning of that liberation struggle is also contested. Some people disagreed with it. Some people will argue what its meaning is and its relevance today. So it's not surprising that people will sing such songs in service delivery protests, in nurses' strikes, and a range of other things. And also yesterday, when the city centre was disrupted in a range of different ways. What I think is important is that we need to view the heritage of the struggle as having a number of different meanings. For example, the image of a warrior, a police general in Gauteng recently said in relation to the crime problem that we need to pick up the spear again. Now, I think this imagery is used in a number of different ways. It emphasizes armed strength. It also emphasizes male strength because the imagery is mainly of men. So I believe that in the present situation, we have to build the peace. And it doesn't help to say, kill for Zuma, shoot to kill, pick up the spear again. We actually have to find the language of peace and constructive, peaceful resolution of conflict.
Donate now and give 15 Rand a month. SMS JOIN to 41486.